Hi, I'm Jen Allam and I'm the head of gov.uk. I'm going to talk to you about the way that we built the Brexit checker, which was part of our preparations for leaving the European Union, and how we use scenario planning to deliver it. Gov.uk has existed since 2011, 2012, so we're nearly 10 years old, and it serves the UK population and anyone that wants to trade with the UK government. We have, on average, about 18 million visits a week, and at times that has peaked to more than 50 million. So it's the flagship digital product for the UK government, or the front door for interacting with the UK. The way that gov.uk is delivered means that people have a trusted brand and a single place to come for interacting with the government. That's brought together all the work of the central ministerial departments and all of the arm's length bodies too. So that's over 2,000 websites that were brought together under gov.uk. So that means we've been on a digital maturity journey as the UK government. We brought everything together under a consistent brand and look and feel, and we applied standards to the way those services and that information was presented. It has always been user-centred, ensuring that people don't need to understand the government in order to interact with it. But it also means that we've mimicked a little bit of Conway's Law. Conway's Law means that institutions are reflecting their structures at the expense of providing the service in a user-centred way. So now, if you know what it is you need to do with the UK government and you go and look for that thing, like renewing a passport, you'll be able to find that service and complete it. But where that doesn't help is when the problem that you need to solve, or the task that you want to complete with government, sits across departmental boundaries or singular transactions. And that's why Brexit has been so interesting from an innovation perspective about the way that we work as the UK government and its digital function. And of course, we needed to work horizontally, not just with the verticals of departments. So in 2018, we began to think about this problem, about how might we help people understand what Brexit means for them in the round. And that's a mammoth task. It's about relearning what it's like to live and work or trade with the UK. And of course, that was a negotiation that was in flux at the time. We began doing a little bit of scenario planning. There was obviously political activity that might have changed the outcome, and we needed to be able to flex to that in our product and the way that we provided the service. It also meant that we needed to think about how we could bring together the information and services that were relevant. So whether that was something to do with mobile roaming charges, or exporting, or going on holiday, or visas, we needed to think about how could we present back to the user a sort of comprehensive understanding of what it would mean. So we did scenario planning around the political events and how that might change when we might need to deliver and what we might need to deliver. We also did scenario planning about how we might solve the problem. And I think we needed to really take a sort of what-if approach. What if somebody could come to gov.uk and in a short number of questions tell us enough about themselves that we could provide them with a semi-personalised understanding of what Brexit would mean for them. In technical terms, that's not particularly radical. It's a product that's a little bit like a sort of smart answer. Answer 10 questions, we'll give you a set of results. But what was radical was bringing government together in order to work on this horizontal. So we started to do much more around the convening, and through that, we were able to map all of the different attributes or elements of Brexit that might affect the way that you would be affected by it when that decision came, subject to what that decision was. So we had lots of late night scenario planning sessions, mapping out the logic and scratching our heads to think about what really was the smallest number of questions that we could ask to give a comprehensive enough answer to begin with. So through that, we were also able to reveal where we actually had missing information or services that would need to be provided in order to give the answer that somebody needed. That was an amazing forcing function in the way that government could think about what it needed to do, because now we had a logic that kind of revealed the gaps in our planning. From that, we were able to start some technical work, and it really did begin as just some simple sort of Q&As that we were asking, and then thinking about how we could present information back in such a way that if you had a shortlist, you could be reassured that there wasn't much that you needed to do, and if perhaps you were traveling a lot and you ran a business, that list also was structured to give you a sense of what needed to happen now and what maybe was something that you could think about in the future. Through that, we were able to really focus on content design in government, so clear information that people don't need to have specialist policy knowledge in order to be able to understand what it is they need to do. That was really quite a shift in the role of content design in government and how we work between policy, legal, and content design, the digital delivery. Can somebody complete the task that they want to based on the information they're presented with? So there was a lot of redrafting that was going on in the information, and also a lot of working with departments to agree hierarchy of the most important issues. And that meant, as a way of working, it was quite innovative. It wasn't just that a department could choose what was important about their bit of Brexit, but rather we needed to work together laterally in order to agree how we might present this information back. So we had a problem that we needed to solve. We took a bit of a what-if approach to how we would tackle it, and we also then layered on a lot of user research, so making sure that people understood what it was that they were doing when they interacted with the Brexit checker. But we did that, so there is now, and still is, a landing page on gov.uk that allows you to understand what Brexit means for you, and then provides you with a pretty good set of semi-personalised answers, which we've now wrapped into an account so that you can come back and interact with that as you're working through what Brexit means for you now, and also allows you to control your notifications so that if something changes, which of course many of these things are still being negotiated, you'll get an alert so that you know that something has changed that might mean something for you. It's also really important to reflect that when we launched the Brexit checker, it was our minimum viable product or a starting point for how we were going to improve that product and service thereon. So is the Brexit checker now as it was when we launched it in 2019? Absolutely not. It's been really iterated through that period where it's reflected the changing policy, changing services, and also what we've learned about the way that people are interacting with it. When we exited on January the 1st, that also really changed the way that we needed to provide the information. So iteration is essential, and we consider our work not done at any point, and we still have standing product teams and content teams working on ensuring that people understand what Brexit means for them. And this is a theme that you'll find in other talks as part of the Innovation Masterclass. All of that learning was central to the way that we dealt with COVID when that hit as the pandemic. In fact, all of that horizontal working that I guess we'd sort of broken the back of in the way that we approached Brexit with a bit more time, we were able to recycle with those relationships and those ways of working, and frankly, quite a lot of the code to be able to repeat for helping people with the pandemic. And that work, as it is for Brexit, is still ongoing. So thinking about what Brexit and COVID have meant for the way that we approach digital transformation in government means that we can go back to that principle of Conway's Law. We've got departments in government with arm's length bodies, and they're all publishing and providing service under a consistent brand. But what that means is that really, we're still not helping people work beyond the boundaries of government and the design of government. We're just reflecting the structure of government, but under a consistent brand. So Brexit and COVID have shown us the way about how we can do the hard work to make it simple for people to interact with the government. So there are pathfinders for what we want to do next. Our ambition is that gov.uk should actually be able to provide a personalised interaction between the citizen and the state. If you want to tell us things about you that we can hold as persistent, then we can actually start to provide you with a different level of experience. COVID, again, following after Brexit, was such an interesting use case because, of course, there was huge support provided to businesses at that time. And if we'd been able to have that persistence that you told us that you were running a business for the Brexit checker, then we would have perhaps been able to provide you a push service when it came to initiatives associated with the pandemic. So we like to think of these a bit like whole user journeys or whole problems or life events. We haven't really settled on a name yet, but we're trying now to think about the process of starting and sustaining running a business in the UK. What we know is that 10 departments actually contribute to all of that information and those services, and currently it amounts to more than 120 things that you might need to do with the government. So what if we rethink that and actually say, we're going to have a persistent experience from when you've registered your business, perhaps the easy bit, and we're then going to be able to guide you all the way through the life of your company in whatever that might involve, exporting, importing, employing people, visas, and so on, that with just a little bit of data, confidence that you're able to act on behalf of that business, we can provide a completely different experience in the way that you interact with the government. So if we're successful in redesigning the way that people are able to start and run businesses in the UK, then that's our third time that we've been able to think about the horizontal of public service under gov.uk. We're going to be building the infrastructure now in order to enable that. That's around the gov.uk account, our relationship with trusted digital identities and access management. And of course, it means there's going to need to be a revolution in the way that we think about data in government, data about people, data about government itself, and how we can combine that in order to provide the sort of experience that means you don't need to think about government because government already knows enough in order to provide you with a joined up, trusted and proactive service. So to sum up about the experience we've had over the last couple of years, it really underlines a few key points. The first is, you need to be user-centered in what you're doing. If we hadn't had that as an approach, we probably would have continued with a model where we provided information and transactional services and allowed users to just navigate a sea of thousands of things to see if they could work out what Brexit meant for them. I think that also required that we had some what-if moments. How might we be able to do something in a different way? And what's radical here was not the technology or the build. It was about the way of working and about an approach. And I think that's often where the innovation comes from, really understanding the problem you need to solve and working back from first principles from there. I think the third that I would stress is around iteration. None of these products were done the first time. We're still working on them. And that's more than a couple of years on from when we first launched them. They're still essential. And at the point that nobody needs them, we'll retire them. So I believe there's no such thing as lights on running of a product. If you've got it live, you need to be learning from the way that people are interacting with it and adjusting it accordingly. Gov.uk will never be done. And I think that's a really healthy attitude to take to any sort of digital transformation that you're working on. Thanks very much for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Innovation Masterclass.